Against this right back, Charlie.
There's always just that active red line defending. I think it's like.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian. Man. Come on.
As the big man Ian Wright just said there, people deluded, I'm back again. Now, we've done a couple of these shows. Welcome, Jess, again, aka She Knows Arsenal. I can't imagine you're not subscribed to her and her channel, but go and check out the Patreon page, the collaborations, her shows, all of that good stuff. All you need to do is click the title and you can subscribe and show love to the Arsenal family. How are you doing, Jess, in what is a disappointing January period for us? No signings.
I mean, it's a normal January period. When do we don't really do things in January. I feel like people are like, I don't know, deluded themselves into thinking that every single January we're going to buy like a lot of players. It's not going to happen. So my January has been fine. Thank you very much. Just let you guys know, these shows would not happen if it was not for me, because I chase CJ down every week to get these done. So if you guys like these shows, give the credit to me because I make them happen.
It's fake news, man. It's fake news like the transfer rumors, man. I can't neither confirm or deny these reports. You know, what I would say is we're working hard to deliver great content. You know, when she's not slandering me there, she's accusing me of being late, you know, where it was her in her last stream. In fact, on that, we just done a live stream on her channel. So go and check that out as well, people. That would have been out long before this comes out. So go and have a butcher's. Yeah, I mean, could she set me up? You know what? Yeah. First, I will say I'm disappointed with January and not sign. In fact, let me ease you into it. You know, it's a bit of a disappointing January for me because we've seen Aubameyang sign. Obviously, last year it started off with João Felix and Mudryk. They both ended up at Chelsea. We did end up with Kiwior, obviously Trossard and Jorginho. Are you disappointed because, you know, while we were briefed by the club of FFP and Arteta said there'd be no signings, we've spoken about it. We'd all love a striker. We could do with a winger, a central midfielder. We heard there's a defensive body. Are you concerned with a lack of signings? And do you think we need more signings to give us a push to somewhat salvage our season?
I would love for Arsenal to be creative and move in this window for something more than a defender, a midfielder, or an attacker. I would love that. I would love to see Arsenal be creative. I think we see every single January that there are creative signings that you can make. I think Arsenal did okay with Trossard and Jorginho last season. But, you know, this is kind of typical Arsenal. They stick to the script. They love to wait until the summer window to make their big signings, and they're unwilling to like shift things around because they have this big master plan. And I feel like seasons go by without us really succeeding in anything or winning anything because we're kind of unwilling to be cute and clever in windows when we could be. So this is what I'm used to. But would I like Arsenal to be different? Yeah, I would, because how many seasons are going to go by without us winning anything? I'm a little bitter, like just a little bit bitter in terms of like
facts.
This is going to sound bad, but like I'm bitter that we're not in a final, you know, for one of the domestic, or at least, you know, the Carabao Cup, right? It's the Carabao Cup. Liverpool and Chelsea are both in the final. And it's like, that could have been us, you know, and I'm tired of going through seasons with no finals, no Wembley, no trophy, nothing. You know, and I feel like a lot of that is because we have this big grand plan of when it's all going to come together. But what if it doesn't? You know, sometimes you have to be in the moment. And I feel like Arsenal are always about the future. And whenever we're about the future, we tend to miss out on that one or two signings that could have gotten us somewhere. And then we have to start the project over. We've seen this before. So I'm not surprised, but I would love for Arsenal to do something out of the ordinary. You know, I would love to see Arsenal just do a little bit more, but same old Arsenal.
I mean, incomers is one thing. Not that, you know, there is players that have been linked with moves away. Are you quite shocked by the lack of outgoings? You know, Smith-Rowe was linked with West Ham, you know, things around Eddie Nketiah, Reece Nelson. We probably knew Aaron Ramsdale weren't going to leave, but him, we're going to get on to Tavares, but it's like we're struggling to flog him. And, you know, we're going to keep it football where Nuno Tavares is concerned because he's trending for other reasons. But are you concerned with the lack of outgoings? Because you did hear we're in a bit of a unique position where we've got to sell before we can buy, and we've got to buy before we can sell. It all depends which journalist you read on the day.
Yes, because we actually have players that people want now, and we still don't sell. You know, before it was none of our players had any value. They were all crap. They're on high wages and this and that. It's the pandemic. Now we're out of the pandemic. They're not on high wages. Well, some of them are on highish wages, but they're not on as high wages. They're young players and people want them. And we're like, no, we're not going to sell Eddie. No, we can't. We cannot unless we can replace him with a world-class striker. We're not. Why? Just move him on. Like, I don't even personally, I think you could move on Eddie and not miss him for a second. You know?
I think that's harsh. You know, I agree with you in that, you know, Eddie's a bit part player and stuff. But for me, I just think with Arsenal, I think we need to have too many players rather than too little. I think too many times across the season, I've seen people drop. And, you know, I think everybody would like a better striker, and maybe Jesus in the Nketiah role in that you're the second choice striker. But it just feels like we don't have enough options 9 times out of 10. We're playing a dangerous game in the midfield. But I agree with you. You know,
it's like
exactly.
I get the options thing, but it's like it's kind of like, I don't know. I can't think of an analogy right now, but it's like you have a bunch of options, but none of them really do much, you know? I feel like, yeah, Eddie could offer a little bit more in running into the channel, or Havertz can add a little bit of height, or Trossard can add a little bit of creativity. But ultimately, if you stick all 3 of them in the center forward position, you're going to get the same result, you know?
Anyone up front for our club, nobody's clinical. Obviously, we
Yeah.
know the striker roles develop, but goals. And as you
Yeah.
said on your stream, Arteta said, I want to have 100 goals. What we did last year was an anomaly. I don't think he's mitigated
Why is
against
he
that.
talking? Why
I
is
don't know.
Arteta saying
Listen,
these
I'm
things?
not even trying to catch him out, Jess. I like the manager. I don't back you religiously, but I have to go off what you're saying. Like, I wanted to ask you as well. Obviously, you know, FFP isn't something necessarily unique to Arsenal. It seems like everybody's kind of struggling. It is a bit of a quiet January. But where you look at, you know, the big money contracts we've given, the signings we've made across the last 2 years, like the summer, have we kind of made this issue of ourselves of not doing what we need to do in the summer and finding ourselves in January, not being able to maneuver and boost our claims of salvaging some season and ending it with silverware?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. If you
Without a doubt.
knew that you were going to be, you know, you got Richard Garlick and Tim Lewis and whoever else up there with big brains that can look at the numbers and say, this is all we got. You know, so when you're in the summer window and you know, okay, we can spend about 200 and something million, you got to get it right, because you know, once you spend that, you can't do anything and you're not willing to sell. So, and I think some of the reason why we're not willing to sell Eddie and stuff like that is because they're English. I think that that's a part of it. So they know these things ahead of time. So then what you do know is that you have to get the summer window like perfect, because you're not going to have the ability to maneuver in the window in January at all. And what did they do? They made sure they did not get it perfect. They didn't get it right. You know, they made sure that they did everything in their power not to do it right. You know,
5 million on certain players.
they love to sabotage us. So, yeah, I think we've set ourselves up here. Arsenal just make their job so much harder. Would it have been so hard to just bring in a normal midfielder? Would it have been so hard to bring in a striker? No. I mean, there's so many options in the summer, and they chose to do something completely out of left field. So, yeah, they set themselves up, and I would love to be a fly on the wall, you know, in the boardroom with Arteta and Edu and all of them, looking at where we're at, how we've performed, and see if there's any regret, because there has to be, because we're not where we need to be, and we've spent a shit ton, and we can't do anything in January to rectify it. To me, that just spells we failed in the window, recruitment wise, you know? So yeah, it's all our fault.
I'm with you with that. With 100%, it's like, you know, there's a lot of external things that we can't control, but you always hear Arteta say it's my job to maximize internally. And I think at this moment in time, we're ticking along, but you haven't necessarily done that. At this moment in time, I don't see what Kai Havertz is bringing to the team. I'm not trying to scapegoat him and things like that, but you're not a like for like replacement on Granit Xhaka or an enhancement. As I said on your channel, you know, I like Xhaka, but it's not like we're replacing Pirlo or Vieira. I think a lot of it is because we haven't replaced Xhaka properly, or even the pivot with Xhaka and Partey. I feel people really underestimate when Xhaka would go left back and let Zinchenko invert, when he would hug the touchline to let Martinelli invert. He just wants the ball a lot more. So I'm at the point of I can't really get at Havertz. You didn't buy yourself really and truly. And then you mentioned it with the young players. I think we might have to keep some of them because they're homegrown, but it's not like they're utilizing them. I don't know if they're comfortable in this position. That's nothing to do with them because they didn't really give the contracts. Ultimately, Mikel Arteta is going to live or die by how he's assembled this squad. And, you know, I don't see how we're closer to getting 100 goals. Yeah, if we sign the 20, 30 or season bagsman, we are, but the others have to chip around. I think there's so many holes in our midfield. Even when Odegaard, Havertz and Rice are playing all right, I don't think our fullbacks are offering enough. As you said on your stream, I think our wingers are too far apart. I think we've dropped off a cliff a bit defensively. Palace, which we'll get onto, is a step in the right direction. So when I'm saying all of this, like what you're saying, it's like we're going against ourselves really and truly and going against the grain. You know, how positive are you then, I guess, like, for any signings, like for anything really? Like, do you have small hope that you might be surprised come January?
No, I go to sleep every night. Like, no signings. Like, I don't even think about it. These guys aren't getting anybody. They're not getting nobody. Let's be serious. Let's be all the way freaking for real. I have no hope. And not because I want to be negative, but because until they sell someone, I just don't see it. We know we have to sell. We know that, you know, so I just don't see it.
Who's the most likely to leave for you, if anyone? And you can't say Cedric Suarez or El Nene.
Gosh, well, the fact that they're still here is nonsense. You know, how many more windows are we going to be talking about these two leaving to Turkey? They never go. But most likely to go. I don't know. No one.
Difficult one, I know.
Yeah, it's like because no one. They've already batted away any interest for Emil, any interest for Nketiah, any interest for Ramsdale, and those are the three that I would say are most likely to go. Now, there is somebody that I think is low key could go, but probably won't because we just don't have enough numbers there, and that's Kivior. I think if we were
he's still getting interest from Italian clubs.
Yeah.
But, like you said, there's no numbers.
Yeah, when their agents start coming out saying like they're happy at the club, it's fine. No, he ain't. No, he's not. You know you're looking around, and if Arsenal could loan somebody in to replace him, they'll probably let Kivior go. I just have a feeling in my stomach that is not going right. It's not going the way that we anticipated it going. No way.
No, it's not. And I do feel, you know, on one hand, you know, we all know, even Eddie and Nketiah showed it to a degree, regardless of what we say. It's very difficult when you haven't been given a run of form to kind of show yourself. But the reality is, where was this going to come? You know, if Tomiyasu, Timber, Zinchenko are fit, left back, you can forget about it. Centre half, unfortunately, you've got Saliba and Gabriel. But had he have shown a bit more, which, you know, the boot thing against Brighton, like, to be fair, towards the end of the last season, he was all right.
Every time we do a show, you mention him messing with
I can't forget it because when I hear Polish centre back, Polish international, been playing in Italy, your foot should be broken and you're still trying to defend. So when you're playing around with your boot, when you're doing the Sporting Lisbon thing, when you're getting terrorized against PSV, when you're getting hooked against Fulham, you're not reliable. And I would say if you're not going to be a regular, at least, like, even Tomiyasu, he is a regular of sorts, but he was on the peripheral. When he's coming on occasion, you can kind of have some relative confidence with Kyrgios. And I think the biggest thing with Kyrgios is a lack of confidence. I hope that we can see some quality, but like you said there's a level of interest in him. If Napoli, AC Milan, these clubs want you, keep it moving, really. And that's the difficult one, really. Like, if we let him go, I don't know, like, I don't think it makes sense to let Eddie Nketiah or Kyrgios or in them kind of players leave in January, even though I wouldn't be against it because we're down to our bare bones, really. If we don't make any signings and the squad stays as it is, then, like, how confident are you in terms of our pursuit of salvaging our season, like Premier League, Champions League? Like, where are you even at with that? Are you optimistic about those hopes? Are they kind of done? Like, let me know everything.
Okay, so first, there's always a moment with a player where you just write them off. And I feel like for you, that was Kivior playing with his boot. For me, it's like when Tavares passed it backwards and it got intercepted at Anfield. I was like, get him out. Get him out.
Not the truth, man. I writ off Tavares, as we said on your stream. I writ off Tavares before I even saw him play for the club, man. He's talking about shooting with his right foot. Like, these are duds. Like, and I'm not asking the club to get everything right, you know, but if we have to maximize resources and that, I don't know, because as much as I actually think Zinchenko enhanced our system. I think Jesus has been great. I think the reintegration of Saliba, several signings Mikel Arteta has done, they've worked really. Declan Rice, even though he would have probably banged everywhere, but then you look at Kirio, you look at Tavares, you look at, I hate throwing him into this because I don't think he is, Fabio Vieira, Kai Havertz. We're not maximizing our funds. Like, it's like we're missing and hitting at the same time, and we can't afford to do that, really and truly.
That's the thing. It's I just love to know, like, when did the straw break the camel's back with certain players? It's funny. For you, it was that. That's hilarious.
It might have even the sporting header as well, really. Like, Kirill, just you're a pretty boy, innit? Like, you're not what I wanted you to be, man.
Some of the things that he's done is shocking. Listen, in terms of, like, do I have any confidence that we'll be able to salvage any parts of the season? There was a lot of damage done in December. A lot of damage done in December in terms of going out of cups and also losing too many games. We lose games. Last season was the only season under Mikel Arteta where I felt like we rebounded quickly off of losses. Right. We were able to recover. This season is much like the seasons of past with Mikel, where we lose in bunches. And the good teams don't lose lots of games. They, at the very least, draw, but they win a lot of games even in adversity. Arsenal haven't been able to do that this season. I feel like there was early signs of some fragility. Fulham being a major red flag. You should be beating Fulham easily at home. I'm sorry,
especially how it works for us. You're right.
Yeah,
I know it was
insanely fragile. I mean, even Spurs at home
shot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah, so it was like they were starting to add up. You couldn't go to Newcastle and get something. We had to lose. We went to Aston Villa. We should have won. We lost. And so even before December, there was damage, and then we completely killed us off with the Fulham and the West Ham losses. That was just like, for me, the league is done, because with Manchester City and Liverpool, they don't lose like us.
Liverpool got one loss all season at the time of making this vid, I believe.
And they should not have lost that game. The only reason why they lost it is because of like a egregious error from VAR.
Yeah, and they had 9 players or 10 players or something.
Yeah, exactly. If we go down to 9, 10 players against Spurs, we get whooped. We're not, we don't have that, so I don't think the league is in play. I think the most important thing is to act like you still have a chance so that you don't fall into a top 4 scrap. I think we finished 3rd or 4th, if I'm honest. And then I think
who pips us then? If I assume City or Liverpool 1st and 2nd, give or take, who gets the 3rd then?
I don't even want to say it.
Them lot down the road.
I don't even want to say it.
I can literally see their stadium from my window.
Oh, really? You're that close?
Man. Yeah, man. Every time they play, if my window's open, I can hear their chants. I won't utter them, but yeah, man.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because I mean, I don't like twerking for rivals. That's not, I like to call it how I see it. I just feel like we're gonna finish 3rd or 4th. That's my gut feeling.
I hope 3rd. If
it has to be 3rd. I just don't see how you finish behind either Emery or Ange, and it doesn't get really toxic. Then Champions League is a weird one for me, because that was the one that I was actually most okay with not doing as well in, if that makes sense. I'm like, okay,
when the biggest leeway for the team in Europe, basically.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't been there in a while, so I'm like, okay, if we get to the quarterfinals and we go out to a better team, not Porto, a better team, then I'll accept that. That it is what it is. We're getting our muscle memory back in terms of the Champions League. That's our only chance of really winning some shit now.
You're more confident for the champs than the Prem then?
I mean, it seems like depending on the draw, we might, we look more like a cup team to me. Like, that sounds weird because we're not a domestic cup. Yeah, but I feel like the reason why Arteta did so well in the FA Cup was because that's all he had. That's it. That's it. Like we were so far down in the league and down and out that all we had to do was focus on those like 4 games in the FA Cup, you know? And so I feel like we do have a good chance of going far. Do we have a chance of winning? I'm sorry. Have y'all been watching Real Madrid lately? People talk about Real Madrid like a dog, but they got it. They have that.
They
They
turn
have
up for
the
those nights,
team.
man. We got
Yeah.
some big dogs in Europe still, man. Like we
Yeah.
need a lot of luck.
Yeah, and I'm just talking about the tippy top of the tree in Manchester City and Real Madrid, who I feel like are the best teams left in the Champions League. Atletico look good this season. I don't know if we could beat them. I don't know if we could beat them. I mean, we're arrogant. Arsenal fans, we're arrogant as hell. I'm
I tried to
watching
tell
these other
some fans.
teams. I'm
Fans are
like,
saying I don't fear no one but Real Madrid in Europe. Tried to say be humble in life, man.
Yeah, you have those two, and then you have, to me, like the next best two, which are Atletico and Inter, 2 managers that are tacticians to the T, Inzaghi and Simeone. You know, so I'm just trying to be humble here. I think we're going to have a really difficult time winning anything from now until the end of the season, and that's why throwing the domestic cups for me is becoming more and more of it's pissing me off. Look how Chelsea have gotten to a final and they're not even that good. Shit.
I mean, this is one of my issues. Like, I don't expect us to win everything, and I've said it before. If I had some criticisms over Mikel Arteta, I think he's got a bit of that Wenger trait where he's got faith in certain players that are not really that good. I think he puts players that should be on the peripheral into rotation options and rotators into starters, and then we're kind of shocked that they're not cut up to task. I think we're quite naive in many ways with how we've assembled the squad. Been very disappointed, and I said this on your stream about since we've won the FA Cup, how it's led to it. I'm not going to kill the manager or the players for winning, not going through in the League Cup, but at the end of the day, it is a trophy. You know, we have no divine right to quote unquote throw things. We've got a young, impressionable squad. You know, we need to win stuff. And at the end of the day, you know, the manager, the players, they might be young, but at some point their career is going to go like that. What have you won? What have you done really and truly? And as we saw with Ten Hag, I'm not saying everyone's going to be up in arms about winning the League Cup, but it gives you something, and every trophy creates a mentality. Another criticism I have of Mikel Arteta is two-legged Champions League, two-legged European ties, better yet. I don't think it's all him, but collectively, everything comes down to the manager. I think Villarreal comes to mind. I think Olympiacos comes to mind. I think Sporting Lisbon last season comes to mind. So if we're now in the Champions League, this is where I need to see the manager earn his money. I said in August, I'm going to give you a lot of leeway in the Champions League for the things you said, but I'm also going to be a bit strict in how we maneuver it really and truly. And I'm not going to lie, when you started saying Real Madrid, Inter Milan, you know, Atletico Madrid, it made me, as soon as you were saying that, I weren't actually thinking about the games at the Emirates. I'm thinking about the games at their place. Now, quote unquote, under Arteta, our away form's improved. Maybe not so much this season, but it's a different animal and a different beast, really. And, you know, anytime you can win, and we'll get on to Palace, it gives you a bit of, you know, confidence. Winning and losing is infectious, but we have to, like you said, we have to be very humble, and we're going to need luck.
And I just want to like also remind people that like, as exciting as it was for us to be in that group stage and to do well, like we did, if you've been watching Sevilla this season, they're trash, guys. Like, they're not the team that people think it is. Like, we had a very favorable group for the Champions League, and we didn't struggle, but it's going to be completely different when we get out of that, you know. And I feel like people have unrealistic expectations. I don't know if it's because we haven't been in the competition for a while, but I think we think like, well, we're one of the best teams in England, and the Premier League is one of the best leagues, so that means that we're in it, like, better than these other guys. Some of these teams have World Cup winners in it, past Champions League winners in it, that have been around the block,
and experienced managers.
Yeah, they've been around the block a lot, you know. So stay humble. The Champions League is not going to be easy. It's not.
I mean, I'd rate us currently as the 3rd best team in England by default, because obviously Liverpool are not in the Champions League. It's us.
Yeah.
Well, us, City, Newcastle are out, but it's us, City, and who else is there? Who else is in the champs? Our City, Newcastle have gone.
That's it.
Man
Like,
United have gone in it. So by default, we're the second best team from England in Europe still in the Champions League. So I think we have to give a good account of ourselves. I think we need a lot of luck, but I think we need to earn our luck. And I think there's certain naiveties and a certain sort of mentality that I think is going to need to be installed. Now, I hope Mr. Kai Havertz and Jorginho, you've won this trophy, and a lot of players have transferable experience, that it works out. I just think as a club, we'll leverage on the point of, we've got a young squad. All the points you said aid that as well in comparison to us. It's our first, we've just broke our Champions League virginity. We're going to keep it moving in that regard. So I'm a bit pessimistic, but if we could win it how Chelsea won it the first time, on a dodgy one, I'd accept it. But I think it's going to be a trophyless season. I'm shameless. We won a trophy in August, so I wouldn't quite say that's the case. But yeah, in terms of significant honours, it looks like another difficult season at best. I hope that it's a thing where even if it's Liverpool and City running away with the league, we're in that conversation in May. I'll accept that. I think you have to finish anything from first to third to keep this trajectory going. But I think internally the club will say, you know what, last season was an anomaly. We finished second. This season, Liverpool have hit back. They've got way more experience than us. City the same. If we finish third, we'll obviously go ahead. But next season, I think the gloves will be off. I do think Mikel Arteta is going to get a new contract. On the topic of Arsenal, though, I'm not expecting you to know everything that Richard Garland
who is
does.
this man?
Allegedly, again, the article said he's a respected leader and a qualified lawyer. He's been at West Brom. He's held a number of high-profile roles. He's had a major hand in contract negotiations as well as transfers. So without knowing anything too much about the guy, how significant do you feel that he's effectively taken Vinay's role? And I imagine someone's going to take his role.
This is very on. God, you got a lot of tabs open.
Don't be like Alex. I need these tabs. There's a method to the madness. There's a method to the madness.
Honestly, this just how mine looks. I open up hella tabs and never go out of them. So I'm just saying that because I'm like, damn, I see you. But yeah, in terms of Garlic and I know Vinay was just supposed to be in that role, almost as an interim. That wasn't really his main thing.
I think he said a year ago he's leaving as well.
Yeah. So he stepped in and kind of stood in that role until we found the right person. This is very on brand for Arsenal to hire from within. That's kind of how we are, whether you like that or not. And so I would imagine getting somebody that's very has done this role before or has more experience than Vinay should give us some sort of benefit. But I'm not even about to sit here and act like I don't know anything about what this man be doing.
Technically, we don't. We're not flies on the wall. We don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what y'all be doing. The only people that I know of, I know what Arteta does, and I know what Edu does, and I know what Per does. Garlic and Lewis and Vinay, I've been totally what y'all be doing.
Yeah. You indirectly are involved, but we don't know what you're doing on a day-to-day basis unless we watch the All or Nothing or have read it there. And I know there were some rumors flying about stadium tours have been cancelled because there's an announcement imminent. I think this was obviously it. Yeah. I personally think they've wrapped up the new deal for Mikel Arteta and they're just waiting to take pictures and announce it as well. Serious? So I think they have, because why would they sack Mikel? I'm not saying he should or shouldn't be sacked, but as I said, the minute he walked into this club, it's dramatically better. We're fighting for trophies. We return to the Champions League. He's indirectly hitting these KPIs. There's young and impressionable players that are improving. He's not going to live or die by winning the league. Maybe next season and seasons beyond if he's still here. And guys, I'm not saying Arteta is or isn't the guy, but I think they're going to give him a new deal. And regardless of what we think about Arteta, he is a man whose stock's rising. And if he was to leave tomorrow, there'll be a lot of clubs interested. Me personally, I think they've given him a new deal.
Well, I think it's inevitable that they will give it to him. Exactly. I don't know if it's done or not yet, but one thing I am keeping a little eye out on is if Xavi gets sacked.
They lost again, didn't they? It's his birthday today and you're getting that Xavi, man.
Listen, I don't care for the man. Whatever, caused loads of pain over the years.
Terrific player, crap manager.
Hold that, but he, if he gets sacked, which I think is very in the realm of possibility. I don't think Barcelona give a shit. I think you're not doing what you need to do. You're out.
Yeah. They're getting worse. Madrid are getting better.
Yeah, exactly. So I could see them knocking on our door for Arteta, because they're not going to get Xabi Alonso. I feel like he's dead set to go to Bayern. I feel like it's already it's already going to happen.
He
So
could
you
even go
want,
to Madrid one day, even though Carlos signed a new deal.
yeah.
Or even
So
Liverpool if Klopp leaves.
exactly. So I do feel like, if I feel like the only way Arteta leaves Arsenal is if somebody comes and gets him.
I
And
feel that, or if there's like we feel like, God forbid, we're out of the Champions League. I think Arteta would have to do a lot to get sacked. I think the
a
club are
lot.
bet on him. The club are
Yeah.
bet on him. He's the most important man off the field that isn't just Kroenke. We know we've got Richard Garlick experience and stuff. Eddie will leave before. We spoke about Kai Havertz. You look at Unai Emery. A lot of the signings Emery wanted, he wanted Partey, never got him. He wanted Zaha, he never got him. Everything within reason Arteta wants, he gets. And if we don't get it, like with Rafinha, like with Neto, like with Mudryk, like with Douglas Luiz, there's an aggression to go and get it. Like we've said before, Kai Havertz, I don't think everybody unanimously wanted him. I think Arteta fought his case and he won that battle, really. They bet on him, really. Now, you're over in the States. You probably know more about all them other sports apart from me, but a lot of my American-based subscribers, they always tell me, like, when you look at what the Kroenkes do, it kind of mimics to a degree what they're doing in other sports. They get a young, kind of impressionable coach. They get similar folk around him, and
they give them everything.
Exactly, and then they lead them to their own devices. So, with that being said in mind, and the money spent that Arteta has spent, and the much they've put into him, and I'm not saying he's achieved anything necessarily, but it's the most positive Arsenal's been in a hot minute. Are you going to sack him anytime soon? Probably not, which is why I think he's signed a new deal or in the process of such.
It's going to be, I want to know what the reception would be, because I do feel like, unlike the last one, this one won't be as universally loved.
I think when the season's done, they can't do it now. We're frustrated.
But even if they do it at the end of the season and we're trophyless, I do feel like it'll be less, oh my God, I'm so excited. Yes, he deserves it. It's going to be like, okay, so what are we actually giving him contracts for? I get it. They want to protect his value. If somebody comes and poaches him, they want to be able to get more money for him. It's just like a signing. It's just like a player, so I get that. But I do think that, like, it depends. I want to ask you about this because somebody was telling me that they feel like if we end up trophyless this season and we finish, like, let's say 4th, that the stadium will turn on Arteta. I don't actually agree with that. I don't actually think that the fans in the stands, because that's like the end, like, of a manager, is when the fans in the stands start to banners and chants and things like that. What do you think? Do you actually think that another trophyless season for Arsenal and potentially finishing, like, behind Ange or finishing behind Emery will be the straw that breaks the camel's back for some Arsenal fans, and it'll start to get a little bit more toxic?
I think we're moving into that conversation of, Mikel Arteta is quote unquote rebuilt the club. Great. One love for that. Now it's moving to, can you get us into Champions League finals? Can you deliver success? Can you spoil us for years of moving to the Emirates where we've been deprived of trophies? Can you get the Premier League? I think that's where the conversation happens. And, me and you do a lot of content with a lot of Arsenal fans. We're all on other platforms. You've got some Arteta sexuals. He can do nothing wrong. You criticize him, you hate him, and all of that stuff. They've probably got posters on their wall of him. I think there's some that, while there should be healthy questions of Arteta, it's just get him out. We're all quite divided. But I do think the club has shown with bringing in Arteta and a lot of other periods that they kind of shut the outside noise up. And I think it would have to take a lot. Emery, I think everybody moved into that degree where everyone wanted him gone. But it literally took what you're saying, not quite banners, but there's no bums on seats anymore in the stadium. Wenger, it had to get really, really bad. It was toxic for years under Wenger, but it had to get really, really bad for them to clip him. So I don't think they'll do that, which is why I think in May they'll announce his new deal, because the season's done. Everyone has to breathe and accept it. May's done. You get into June, July. Everyone's kind of getting giggity for the transfers and for the new season. So I think they'll just hold that, really. But I do think it can get, the more we don't win, the more toxic. Because our atmosphere ain't the best. Go on.
What it'll be is, like, we'll get to the end. It'll be all sad and pathetic and stuff like that. And then they'll start talking about all these big ass signings that we're gonna get and all the money in the war chest, and then they'll just sneak it in.
The athletic articles will come out. It's predictably, like, you've made content for how many years? You followed the club for a gazillion years. We've all seen this before, which is,
for sure,
as much as I love the club, I kind of accept it. Like, I can't change much. Like, anything's a surprise, man. Really. Kind of moving on from that, Mr. Thomas Partey is back in training. How do you feel on that? Do you think it gives us a boost? Does he walk straight into the team? Do you think he, does his part to salvage our season? What's everything Thomas Partey with you?
Listen, I feel like anytime you get a quality player back in your ranks, it's a boost. I don't think you can deny that Thomas Partey, when he's fit and firing and, you know, switched on, not having head loss, he's one of the best midfielders in the league. I stand 10 toes down on that. Whether or not he's ready to come straight back in, he hasn't played a lot of football this season and he's been injured for a while. So I don't think he comes straight in and starts, but maybe he plays some sort of part. You have to give him some minutes, to get going. And I think Arteta will be eager to get him some minutes. If I had to bet, I would say that Arteta's probably looking at the decisions that were made in the summer and thinking, maybe that wasn't the brightest, so he'll probably put Thomas Partey at
65
DM.
million gets you Louise, man.
Yeah.
In my opinion, in the summer.
Yeah. So I think he'll, put Thomas Partey at the 6 and put Declan Rice in the Xhaka role and try to at least mend a little bit of that and get some of the dynamics from last season going. So yeah, it definitely is a boost for Arsenal. We need balance in our midfield. I think whether it's Jorginho or Thomas Partey, that's our best bet. Whether or not he can stay fit is the main thing. It's really hard for me to get excited about injury-prone players coming back because I'm always just waiting on the other shoe to drop. And that's just the truth. I know people don't like to hear it, but I keep the same energy with everybody, whether it's Tommy or, is Tierney at one point, even Zinchenko. I'm always waiting for him to go down because he's always injured, so hopefully.
Even Nelson and Smith-Rowe, if I'm honest, I want to say the ALM boys, but they've had that as well.
Yeah, and as an Arsenal fan, we spend a lot of time talking about what could have been with players that were always injured. We do that all the time. We love to
till this player's
glamorize.
back fit and this, and I don't doubt it, but how many times just have we seen this story? I want to be wrong. I hope this movie results in another ending, but kind of echoing what you're saying, the main thing is, how fit are you going to stay? Are you going to be there against Liverpool? Are you going to be there for the running? And also, in Partey's credit, clearly it's been touch and go all season with him, even when he kind of came back for the City game. How fit are you? How are you the Thomas Partey of what we've seen? Because you're going to have to let him get back to his level, and hopefully he gets some minutes against Nottingham Forest, and then obviously against Liverpool, we're laughing. I think if he gets significant minutes, we laugh really and truly, because I do think we miss what we've been speaking about with Xhaka, what we miss with Partey. It's a madness, really. But can you stay fit is the main thing. On the topic of midfielders, it's random, but where do you stand on, Declan Rice and breaking lines and all of these things? People are putting up the Partey clips, the Jorginho clips, etc., etc.
I think Arsenal fans always need one player to place the entire blame on. I feel like we love to target and have it like a scapegoat. And so for every 4 games or so, there's a new one. First 4 or 5 games, it was Havertz. Next 4 or 5 games, it was Odegaard. Next 4 or 5 games, it was Martinelli. Now it's Rice. They're holding us back.
Jesus and Saka.
Yeah, it's just like
they even said that about Big Gabriel as well.
Yeah, it's like there's always someone that's holding us back, or if we didn't have them in the team, we'd be so much better. And no, you're never better than when you're injured. And I think that because Partey has been injured and it's starting to seem like he's going to come back, the pressure on Rice to perform in a way that he's not going to perform because they're not the same players is starting to ramp up. I've actually felt like ever since the West Ham game, where Declan Rice probably had his worst game in an Arsenal kit, I feel like the tides have changed on him. It only takes one game for people to start thinking about you differently. And so you're the £100 million signing. We haven't changed all of our fortunes, but when Thomas Partey was in here, we were cutting through the lines. Yeah. Well, also,
and he got a lot of criticism as well. Partey.
Yeah, but we were a different team last season in every way, shape, and form. Beyond our back line, everything has dropped away, and it wasn't just Thomas Partey. It was Granit Xhaka who was doing a lot of that work in there. I know that we made up this narrative that, Thomas Partey was being held back by Granit Xhaka, but I think they held each other's hands. I think
they complement each other very well, really.
Exactly.
And truly.
You need partnerships. And right now, Declan Rice doesn't have the benefit of another progressive passer sitting next to him that's willing to take on a lot of the work. He has Kai Havertz next to him. And I'm not trying to beat down on Kai, but you have Zinchenko, who's a progressive passer, and you have Declan Rice, who's progressive passer. And then you have Havertz, who doesn't he doesn't do any of the progressive passing. Where last season, has Zinchenko, Xhaka, and Partey. And the only way that we can get another one
I know they guard in the pockets.
and now the only way to get another progressive passer into the mix is to take our best creative midfielder and drop him back. So I just feel like when you think about the ripple effect, you can maybe give Rice a little bit more grace, especially because it took Thomas Partey a long time to learn that lone 6 role. He wasn't perfect at it from the beginning. He even gave himself a 4 out of 10 in his second season. So we know that he wasn't perfect. I just feel like Rice is the next guy scapegoat. He's the next person that it's like, well, it has to be your fault. And then you show a couple of videos of him passing backwards, but never show any of the videos of him passing forwards. You know, you start to get a couple of tacticos out there saying certain things, and it starts to manipulate the narrative around a player. Then you have rivals that are chiming in because they want him to fail, and it starts to change the narrative. For me, where I land on Declan Rice is obviously he needs to improve on certain things. Every single player does. He's learning how to play a new role that's very difficult to learn. Rodri was not the perfect DM when he went to City. Rice will not be the perfect DM when he goes to Arsenal. But until the midfield is balanced, I just feel like, and having him being the main source of progressive passing in our midfield, it wouldn't work for anybody. You need to have multiple players doing the job, and he's dropping back into the back line, which means Saliba and Gabriel aren't doing as much. It's to me, it's more the tactics and the lack of balance than anything. I believe in Declan Rice 110%. I think he's the guy for us.
You said it there, just like is facts. The only thing I would say is, you know, obviously you're buying tools and trying to use them in a different way. Declan Rice has spoken about how I could be, even down to his West Ham days, I like people like Jorginho. I can add that to my game. Clearly, Jorginho and Partey are more comfortable at that. Declan Rice has never shown you that's a skill set of his. Can he ping a crossfield pass? On occasion, can he play passes? As you said, could he improve? Great, but he's played 200 times for West Ham. However many in the Premier League, played for England, where he's around guys that are paid to do that. And I like Declan Rice's courage. Now, if you imagine you go through school and university and everything, and you get to a point in the working life where you're under Mikel Arteta, where essentially everything you think you know is a lie, it's going to take you a while. I think next season you'll see a better Declan Rice in that regard.
I agree.
I don't think he's going to be Xavi or anything like that, but does he have capacity to get 10 goals, play a bit forward a bit, be on the front foot, be a bit braver? Yes, I think we're not going to see that new look Declan Rice until midfield's addressed. And obviously, Havertz and Rice, go and do is what, you going to the door?
No.
Sorry. I thought you was getting a new signing, but yeah, Kai Havertz and Declan Rice, it's not been an enhancement on Partey and Xhaka. Rice is having to do too much. I think he can play as a lone 6, but we'd need 2 good 8s. I think he can play as a more traditional box to box man. I think we've got a lot more problems than Declan Rice, and it's like what you said. It's the relationships, the pieces of the puzzle. Mikel Arteta has to take a lot of accountability, because if none of the tools are really thriving, and the ones that really are, I would say Declan Rice, but probably Saliba and Gabriel. Are we doing what needs to be done?
Yeah, I feel like if you had like a Zubimendi, and then you had somebody like a Paquetá in your team, you could play Declan Rice in either way. You could play him in more of like the 8 role.
He could be more adventurous. He's having to hold too many hands.
Or he could play in the lone 6, and you're not asking your DM to be your most creative midfielder. I feel like we're asking something.
City don't ask Rodri for that.
Yeah, and of course Rodri makes a lot of line breaking passes, but I ask people, who do you actually see between the lines? When I watch us play, I don't see a lot of players in between the lines. Martinelli's not in between the lines.
Do that too much.
Yeah, Saka's not between the lines. Odegaard's not between the lines, because Odegaard is back further. The only player that could potentially be between the lines is Kai, and he doesn't really make himself available like that. So is it that Declan Rice is not making those passes, or those passes just not there?
I mean, his numbers are improving in the final third, so he's doing what needs to be done. But as I said, he's never going to wake up and he's going to be that, really. He's more of you've got a piano player and a piano pusher. Declan Rice's aspect of the game is a lot more industrious than others, and that's really what it should have been like in this first year. You should have had someone with a bit more glee, a younger Jorginho, a younger Partey. Rice does what Rice does, and obviously gradually you improve. I don't know what Mikel Arteta does. We're going to get onto Smith-Rowe, whether that's putting in Fabio Vieira, putting in Smith-Rowe, putting Havertz in the 10 and saying, Odegaard, you drop deep. Havertz, you just press and make those runs. I don't really know. What do you make of this? You know, there's a bit of two tweets. David Ornstein on Arsenal. There's a possibility of some defensive reinforcements that would be a reactive move to things happening in the market. They're looking at players, but anything like that is in its infancy. Then they're close to the line on FFP. We're not just saying that. In the summer, I do think Arsenal are going to attack the market again. We could see a striker come in. The excitement around Arsenal transfers probably need to be put on hold for a few months. Where you at with that?
It sounds about right. We ain't got the cash. And
Right.
Arsenal will start to build up. The summer window is going to be popping. They're going to start building that,
It's going to be the best party ever.
It's coming, so I can definitely see that, getting excited. I feel like we already know who our targets are. We know Zubimendi, Ivan Toney, Pedro Neto. I feel like it's very obvious what we're going to do in the summer. We just can't do any of it now because we can and will not sell. We can't and will not sell. So and maybe those players aren't available right now. So yeah, I'm not surprised by that. All I'm saying is that in the summer, you have to get the signings done quick, make sure that they're perfect, and just don't slip up, because you can't have two windows like you did. Like, you can't have another window where you just completely miss the mark. You just can't.
I'm with you with that, man. And I somewhat wish how life would have looked like had we have got Rafinha, Pedro Neto, Mudryk, Lisandro Martinez in that inverted role, people of that ilk, Douglas Luiz, again, it seems like we've missed the trick. Obviously, Tavares is trending for reasons and let's not get into that. But Charles Watts has said, talks ongoing between Arsenal and Marseille over Tavares. Marseille want to sign Tavares on a permanent deal. Arsenal and Tavares are open to that. But there's no break clause in the current loan deal with Forest, and they are not keen yet on letting him go complicated. Where are you at with that? Because it seems like we've shot ourselves in the foot not having a recall option if two of the three parties want to get that done for a player that's
crap. Like Edu and Arteta were like, yeah, we don't like you. You're shit.
Just get out of here. Yeah,
and then now that there's an opportunity for something to happen, it's like, oh, shit, now we messed up, So
where did we go wrong there?
Yeah, I do feel like there are some times where I look at Arsenal and I'm like, y'all are just out here just doing whatever. It's like if you and I were in there making the decisions, it's like, and we're messing up because we're newbies and we've never done it before. That's what it kind of feels
amateurist,
like.
Essentially.
Yeah, very, very. Because Nuno, being able to sell him now when people are desperate, that's my thing, is people are so desperate in January that they'll spend money on things that they shouldn't be spending money on.
Yeah.
Marseille are not coming for this man in the summer. They're coming for him now because they're desperate. But we can't take advantage of it because we shot ourselves in the foot, which is something that we talk about quite often. So
on and off the field, unfortunately.
Yeah, you just got to hold that. I feel like he'll stay at Nottingham Forest for the rest of the season. They won't want him. They'll send him back to us, and we'll be trying to sell him and offload him, and there'll be nobody because you'll have so many more options in the summer, and no one's gonna want this guy.
And he's got a year left on his deal. And to be fair with you, like, I agree with you. And the club probably said, just park him off somewhere. We don't really care. I don't really begrudge Nottingham Forest because I know they've changed managers. Yeah, but you need a body. They're learning. I wish we were on what they were on to a degree in that we need bodies. Anything can happen. So they're going to hold that. I don't know if you've seen this, but what do you make of this? Barcelona, Chelsea and Arsenal lost the most money through player transfers in world football over the last decade, new research shows. Now, if we scroll all the way down, apparently Arsenal finished third on that. But if we scroll all the way down, it said Arsenal lost more than 436 million euros, which is about 373 million pounds, after signing players such as Nicolas Pepe for 72 million before he left after 4 years on a free transfer to Trabzonspor. And maybe a lot of that is down to ripping up deals as well. What do you make of that? Is that something we kind of, in the next decade, that can't really be an article that could be made with Arsenal's name?
Yeah, I feel like I was kind of more open to this being the reality because of the pandemic and the fact that the business that was done prior to this new regime was really poor. And so I feel like people forget that we were in a situation where there was no money and we wanted to offload players that were on very expensive contracts, but they were really bad players. Socrates, Mustafi, Kolasinac, these guys, and then you add on the Pepes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's all these guys.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we were dealing with, so I could understand that a lot more. now we're getting into the realm of these are all your players that you guys bought. There's not really any of those kind of mistakes anymore or those types of like scapegoats anymore. And so buying players now and not being able to offload them, struggling to do so, I expect all of this to kind of change. I would love to see Arsenal be a lot more proactive in selling players. Don't wait until it's obvious, and be able to maintain their value by not completely just throwing them into the dirt when you don't like them. I feel like Arteta does a lot of that, like with Nuno. He's crap, don't get me wrong. But when you do things like, yank him out in the 25th minute against Nottingham Forest, it's done. It's finished. From there on out, it's just, he has no confidence. It's over. And so I just feel like our squad players, the guys in and around the team that are like on the outskirts, either we can't get anything for them because Arteta mismanages them and doesn't give them an opportunity to get in the shop window, or people want them and we don't sell because we're holding on tight even though we're not using them. So I expect all of this to get better. I'm saying that it's because they're newish to the job and they're learning. But at some point, like, we can't be this team that continuously loses money on transfers, and it just needs to get tighter. It needs to get much tighter, I think.
Bang on the money, man. What do you make of Osimhen? He's been linked with Arsenal and Chelsea. This article, allegedly, Chelsea already working on signing Victor Osimhen, while a move from Arsenal has been completely ruled out by a football agent. Allegedly, we've already heard that Osimhen, he's been saying that he knows his plan and whatnot. This agent specifically said with Arsenal, he doesn't think that Arsenal have the financial capacity. And also with Arsenal and Spurs, no clue why Spurs is there. He earns 10 million euros a year. Our salary cap is 6 to 7 million euros a year. No clue how he's informed on that or if this agent knows what he's talking about. But what do you make on potentially Osimhen to Arsenal? And do you think he ends up at us? Can we pick Chelsea?
I feel like, I wouldn't be surprised if he was our number one option, because I still feel like he's the best out there. But it just never really felt like he was somebody that we would get because he's very vocal and very much so like a Chelsea player.
All the pictures resurface of him as a boy in the Chelsea shirt as well.
There was even like one of their bigger accounts like wished him a happy birthday and was like, happy birthday, come to Chelsea, and he liked it and shit. And I was just like, all right, Tony, let's go.
Yeah.
Get in there. Let's get in there. It's over,
Or even my guy Vlahovic. I'm still on that, man. I know he's been doing his thing recently.
But,
you're right, though.
It's not going to take much to make our attack much better with a striker. You don't have to get Osimhen. Like I said earlier, like on my stream, like with you, we have a very dire center forward position or situation when we start talking about scoring goals. Two of the biggest XG underperformers, Gabriel Jesus, has accepted that he doesn't score goals, and Kedia is very average. So, it's not going to take much. Get a Sesko, a Vlahovic, Tony in there, and it'll get better. It'll get better. It won't be the end of the world, but F Osimhen and everything he stands on. I hope he flops.
I mean, that's the agendas we're running if he doesn't do the business. Where are you at with Zubimendi? Some reports were saying that he's apparently chosen Arsenal as his new home for the summer, and it's a case of dotting I's and crossing T's. Romano has said, which it doesn't surprise me because good players are wanted by everyone, that Bayern Munich is still sniffing around. We know he's been linked with Aston Villa, Newcastle, Manchester United, actually, Barcelona, and the list probably goes on. Where are you at with Zubimendi?
He's perfect for us, but he's perfect for so many other temes. You don't find these types of players very often. So he's going to have every single Spanish manager is going to be trying to get him. I'm not surprised. Like Xavi has spoken about him as the next Busquets. They've needed a DM for a while. He would fit them perfectly. Xabi Alonso wrote up like a whole thing about how Zubimendi is so intelligent and this and that, and he would know because he was one of those players as well. So when Xabi ends up at Bayern, there'll be an opportunity for him to go there. Then you have Arteta, came from the same place, has a really good relationship with Real Sociedad. We've already, probably talked to him once, if not twice. And so I expect multiple teams to want him. It's just whether or not Arsenal can really convince him that this is the place to be. I think he would be perfect in our midfield. I think Odegaard, Zubimendi, Declan Rice is the perfect balance, and it's what we need. It's just we need
one more midfielder on that, and I think we're sorted.
Exactly. Like I hope Arsenal do the business but I also don't see another alternative to this guy. I guess you could say Douglas Luiz, but they're still different to me.
They're very different.
So yeah, there's multiple ways to solve a problem. So I don't think if you don't get Zubimendi, life is over. But I do think when you see a player that's just perfect for us, you have to put your chips on the table. So hopefully we're in his ear. But if he can stay in Spain and go to Barcelona, I can still see that too.
That's the thing, because these players, you never quite know. I hope we've done everything we can to sign him, but when it comes to the Spanish players, it's a bit like the Italian players, and when old Inter, but more Juventus, it seems regardless they're on that. I hope, and I just hope there's alternatives. So yeah, man. I mean, we've spoken many stream about Zubimendi. I want the guy at the carpet.
When they really want a player, though, they tend to get them.
That's the thing. The only thing that helps us is they might be broke.
They might be broke, yes, for sure. And when Arsenal really wants somebody, they'll wait and they'll come and they'll get them. Like when we wanted Declan Rice, like we'll do whatever. So hopefully we're willing to do whatever, even if that means having to, beat Barcelona to him.
That's the thing, man. It's just, who knows, man. But all I care about is, as much as you want Zubimendi and I want Zubimendi and the club wants Zubimendi, if it doesn't work, get someone else. I don't want to hear we tried. Just make sure it happens. Where are you at with Callum Wilson then? 31 years of age, been linked with Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United, 18 million fee on his head. Are you open to him? He's got 46 goals in 102 games for Newcastle, and I'm pretty sure 86 goals in 215 Premier League appearances. Has been linked with Atletico Madrid as well. Are you confident in him? Would you take him?
In the right circumstances, I probably would. I don't know if we have the right circumstances now. We looked at his goal record. I think he's a striker. You put the ball in the box, he's going to get on the end of it, which is something that we just don't have. His injuries are shocking. He's injured quite a lot, and he's 31. The fee is not the problem; it's the injuries. I wish Arsenal were creative and could float something like this for 6 months just to get us over the line.
Tie us over,
but we're not that club. We're all like an all or nothing. I feel like even doing Jorginho and Trossard last season was like going against our values, because that's just not what we do. So I don't see it happening. Would I take him at this point if I'm desperate? Yeah, but then I also know that Arsenal tend to, if we get this, we're not going to get that in the summer. And because I know we need that, I would just say forget it.
If it's not on loan, I'm not with it, man.
Yeah.
I like him as a player. As you said, he's hungry to kind of get goals. The injury thing's a concern. If it's a tying over thing where, you're saying, between Vlahovic, Tony, Osimhen, Sesko, Ferguson, Boniface, this guy, that guy, we're just doing this for what's left of the season. We're going to get one of them, then fine. If you bought him permanently at 31, it wouldn't make sense to me because it goes against the grain, and he's not a difference maker. He's not better than, obviously he's better than Eddie Nketiah, and in terms of goal scoring, he's better than Jesus, but all for all, pound for pound, he's not a level raiser what we need up front. So it's like, yeah, he's Premier League proven in that, but don't really make sense to me, man. So we'll have to see. What did you make of the Crystal Palace game?
Oh, it's so tough because after the game, I felt underwhelmed, but relieved that we had. Yeah, I felt. Here's the thing. It's like I felt underwhelmed because I feel like if we're honest about what we saw, I don't think we got a lot of answers in terms of the attack clicking the way that I feel like we thought it would. And that sounds weird when you score 5 goals, but 2 of them were on set pieces. Shout out Gabriel. He absolutely dunked on them, and it was great to see.
The one guy listening and finishing training, really.
Yeah, and the 2 of them, like let's be serious. Like I'm glad that Martinelli is back to scoring, but it was like damn near it was like in stoppage time. Palace were already done. They put in Tompkins, and Tompkins was really out of. No decent team is going to defend that way. So I have to. I'm not putting an asterisk next to it. I'm just saying I'm not taking a lot from that goal. The only goal that I felt like was really promising to me was the counterattacking goal with Raya to Jesus to Trossard, because that was something that we haven't seen a lot this season, is Arsenal attacking quick on the counter. But in terms of opening them up and creating loads of chances and creating a lot of pressure the way that we were last season, I feel like we still struggled to do that. And so there's still questions, but at least we're not still losing. So it's hard. And also knowing that Palace are pretty much in like crisis also comes into my mind. As you saw
with the scenes after the game as well.
Yeah. So I don't want to say that, oh my gosh, like we won 5-0, like, but it doesn't mean anything. Of course it does for us because we need to get back to winning ways. But Do I feel like if we had played like that against anybody else, we would have? First of all, I think if Gabriel had not scored those 2 goals, we would have struggled to score, because it would have been like the last couple of games where we were all in their half and we were trying to break them down, but we couldn't. But do I think if we play against Nottingham Forest like that, that we win? No. To me, it's so weird to say, but it was like an underwhelming 5-0, which feels spoiled to say, but it just was. Like, I don't know what to say, but I wasn't as mad as other people were. I felt like some people were like almost like furious because we, still started Havertz, whatever, the tactics hadn't really changed. Everybody was still really far away from the goal. There was still no connection. I didn't wake up mad, but I did leave the game feeling a little bit underwhelmed. What do you think?
I don't think you're wrong, Jess. I don't think you're wrong, Jess. I don't think we was gonna rock up from Dubai and all the issues were gonna be solved. I think the main thing was, and I can't really say it's stopping the rut because we, until we win the appropriate games, but getting points on the board, stopping the rut. I agree with you about the goals. It does sound entitled. It does feel spoiled, but I feel the same way how I felt against Sheffield United. And Sheffield United
It was
at home.
very similar to Sheffield.
Very similar. And I actually would go as far as to say, even though we didn't score enough, it reminded me of Brighton at home and also Wolves at home, where bit of nothing in the final third, lacking a bit of a cutting edge. I do like the fact that we've got some collective confidence. There's a tiny bit of pressure off everyone because we got 3 points. Martinelli obviously bagged. Declan Rice technically got an assist. The goals and everything was kind of spread out, especially with our attackers. Jesus assist, Eddie and his assist. Everyone apart from Saka, really and truly. Everyone getting a bit of confidence, but I agree with you. I still think you're left wanting a bit more in the final third. Listen, I don't care how we score. I want us to be able to score from set pieces, but it does give you Sunday League kind of Brexit football vibes. So I think we're there.
Unless Arteta changes the tactics, I just don't see it changing. I don't think it's the players necessarily. I really think he needs to get the players closer together. I really just think he needs to be willing to take a little bit more of a risk, because we don't even attack with numbers anymore. Like, it's just the front 3. Maybe Odegaard gets in, but we don't put a lot of numbers up front. We don't create situations where the opposition has to really think about okay, well, if we lose the ball here, there's going to be 5 or 6 Arsenal players running down our throat. They don't ever have to worry about that. How many times have we seen us clear the ball out and we're clearing it to no one? Saka, sometimes if you look at his numbers, he looks like a fullback. The amount of blocks and interceptions, I like it. I like that our team is everybody has to work on defense, but when you're clearing it out to nobody and everybody's behind the ball and you create no risk, for the opposition, I just don't understand how you're meant to score, because a lot of what we did so well last season was we were very aggressive attacking wise, very aggressive. We took a lot of risks on the ball. We had a lot of guys in the box. Ben White was overlapping. Yeah, sometimes we got caught out, but I feel like that's how we scored a lot of goals. And then the team was having a lot more fun. The way that we're playing right now, if Arteta doesn't change anything, I don't see much changing. I really
very extreme.
It's extreme.
Right.
It is.
It's very extreme because we're like 2 different teams. I do like the fact of Arteta probably sat there in August and thought, you know what, we need to change things. We need to be a tiny bit more cerebral. But I think, added to the point the players are not doing the job and it looks like we're struggling psychologically. I do agree with that really and truly. And I don't know how to solve it. I'm happy I'm not Arteta, but I think that has to be addressed really. I do think it was good against Palace, the cameos, Eddie off the bench, Jorginho got an assist. Jorginho looked good. And also, almost my last question for you, my second to last question, we can't talk about that game. You knew it was coming. We spoke about it on your platform. Mr. Emil Smith-Rowe, where are you at with him and his cameo? I know you're going to water down his cameo, but...
I am going to water it all the way down because...
Smith-Rowe, you got haters, man.
Some of the things that I was seeing after the cameo, he fed families, see, this is what he gives.
If we've been starving, technically, he must have.
It's if you have 2 8s that do this, do you see? And if you actually rewatch the game, there were a couple of times that Havertz did receive the ball in the half turn and drive forward, but I get that we have to ignore it to pump Emil up. I get that.
Smith-Rowe does it consistently. Look how better we looked when he came on.
Palace were also dead in the water, but it's okay. Listen, I think Emil needs a run of games. Not necessarily because, listen, he needs a run of games.
Oh, so good. I'm
but
happy to hear it
it's
twice,
not
man.
because of the cameo at all. It's because that's how I felt when he played against Sheffield. When he played against Sheffield, before he got injured, I was like, okay, run of games from here on out, because what we saw from the beginning was he can play left 8. Now, it was against lower level opposition, but how do you know if he can play against better opposition if he doesn't get more than 3 minutes? I think if you're
That's
willing to
another
give,
thing.
yeah, I think if you're willing
You're
to
right.
give Havertz 4 or 5 games on the spin before you try Fabio Vieira, then you should use, Emil for the same amount. And if you're willing to play Fabio Vieira at Goodison Park, why can't Emil start against Nottingham Forest? I think this whole thing about him off the ball is just a little bit over the top.
Professional football, he should be doing it. I'm not
Yeah,
negating it because I
should
think
do
there's
it.
one thing Havertz does bring, but if we're praising him for that, then we're in a dark territory because what
Yeah.
player can't do that? What player shouldn't do that?
And your attacking players, let's keep it a buck. Like, I know people is, we're so good because our attacking players will come back and they'll defend, but how many attacking players do we know that don't necessarily do all the grunt work? Like, it's not that deep.
It's a necessity in football. All the City players have to do it.
Yeah, and
Regardless.
you have Declan Rice in your team. You have Gabriel and Saliba. They can take a lot of that work.
Bermuda
And
Triangle.
yeah, and allow one of our attacking players to kind of just focus on attacking. I don't think it's that big of a deal. To be honest, I don't see Madison doing a lot of defending. I don't think he needs to be making the tackles, and stuff like that. So I think if Arteta just modified the system just a little bit, it could suit Emil a little bit more. If we're gonna drop Odegaard deep for anybody, I'd rather drop him deep for somebody that actually plays well in the pockets and can give us goals and assists, rather than Havertz, because we're not getting any payoff from Odegaard dropping deep. We're not getting any payoff. We can build a little bit better, but Havertz is not doing anything in the final third that to me makes it worth dropping Odegaard into a deeper role. So allow Emil the same that you gave Fabio Vieira. Let him play against Nottingham Forest or, whatever. If not that, then Jorginho. But I don't really want to see Havertz again because we know what that is. And I don't really see what the benefit of him in that role is besides just the odd tackle here and there. I know that might sound harsh, but I don't really see it.
I don't think you're harsh because that's actually, one thing I will give Havertz. I know the bar's on the floor. You do look a bit more settled there. But again, when we're praising you, we're not praising you for your glee on the ball, your third man runs. You put in a shift. What player in the Premier League can't put in a shift? The bar is on the floor and the casting net is a lot wider if that's the case. I personally think Mikel Arteta has invented his own issues with how he's kind of changed, how he's replaced Granit Xhaka. Him and Kai Havertz are two different players. And I think, go on.
I said much different. There's nothing similar about the two of them.
And this is it. Like, there's an issue. And I think where you look at our midfield, apart from Declan Rice, everyone's got an asterisk near their name. We spoke about Partey. Is he going to be fit? As you know, certain conditions for Jorginho. Smith-Rowe, reality is you're 24, 2 years left on your deal. You can play 10 to 8 and out wide. Arteta, I wouldn't say your flavour of the month. You're fighting for your season. Fabio Vieira, I like him a lot, but he's not really asserted himself. There's not really someone that you can put a pin on and say you're the guy. It probably would be Partey. But as you know, I think I speak for both of us where we hope for the best with Partey. But are you going to give us a real run of fixtures at this moment in time? So we'll have to see. My last question for you then, like Nottingham Forest, what's your starting 11 then? And how are you feeling going into that?
I'm still feeling a little bit like, I'm not sure.
Jury's still out.
Yeah, because I just can't ignore the fact that Palace were abysmal on the day. But I think we tend to rise a little bit more. Like, I think if Forest come out, like we'll be at the level. I hope we're at the level. But I think Arteta just really needs to go back to basics. I really want to see a game where the attackers look like they're having a good time. Attackers are much better.
Last season.
Yeah, I just want to see them fucking smile. They look like they're going to a funeral. I'm like,
you're right.
You're playing for Arsenal Football Club. You should be excited. They just look like they're so stressed out. So Arteta has to figure out a way to alleviate the pressure from them. Whether that's just simplifying things a little bit, allowing them to get closer together, and I think that could help. I would either play with Emil Smith-Rowe, Rice and Odegaard, or do the Jorginho, Declan Rice and Odegaard. Either balance it out or go full attack. Don't go in between. I feel like Havertz is in between that. Zinchenko.
That's a good point.
yeah, Zinchenko, do your thing. You know, I know.
I think he had a good game against Palace.
Yeah, do your thing.
Not that
I know.
too much.
I know you're on the corners of an injury. You always are, buddy. But hopefully by the time that injury is there, Tommy will be back.
Yeah, Tommy Ashley, hurry up, big up Japan, but you don't need to go out
yeah,
that tournament.
time
If
for
I'm
Japan
honest.
to go out. You know,
Yeah,
I
man,
don't think
hurry
they
up,
will
man.
though. But yeah, like just do your thing. I'm so happy that Ben White looks a lot better. Still can't throw
Looks
in the
fit
ball to
again.
save his life, but he looked fit again, which is great. And Raya, just don't chuck the ball in the back of your net. I was happy to see the performance. Maybe I gassed the goal a little bit. I think I may have, the little throw out, but
Nah, to be fair, it was I mean, I was gassing it as well, but it was nice to see. And for Raya, just to get a bit of confidence, because I feel for
yeah,
Raya, I think the jury's out. But I actually think when we've been losing games, he's done okay in this little period. So you get a little thing. I think in terms of traditional goalkeeping, you don't look head and shoulders above Ramsdale, but that
no,
kind of ball playing stuff and quick decisions, that's what we was told you're brought in. So it's a bit of PR for the gaffer, really. But we want to see that continue. I personally think Nottingham Forest will be a closer game. I think it's going to be one of, I hope to be wrong, but one of them typical kind of British games, a bit like what we had with Luton and Brentford. And that's where I am a bit confused with midfield, because I don't rate Havertz at this moment in time that much. But I can understand if he starts. I do want to go with Jorginho, but as you know, it's essentially gamble. It's going to go really well or really bad. I do want to put Smith-Rowe in there, but I'm not too sure. I would like Partey to start, but is he fit? How long has he actually been in full training? How many minutes has he got? I'm happy I'm not Mikel Arteta. I would be inclined to even explore Odegaard, you drop in, Smith-Rowe, you come in, or even Havertz in the 10, because you're away from the build-up play. You just make your third man runs and you just press and do all that off the ball stuff. Because that's the only thing I can praise Havertz within an Arsenal shirt. That's the only thing I've seen him do well.
The
Apart
thing
from,
is, though,
doing his thing.
as an Arsenal fan, you know that you can dominate a game against physical
Yep.
opposition by having better technical players. So I don't necessarily feel like Havertz being this dual monster is going to give us as much of a benefit as maybe just having another attacking player and
Probably
putting
the
them
height
under
for second, isn't it?
pressure. Yeah, put them under pressure, with actual attacking play. But if Arteta's not willing to let the reins go, then yeah, go with Jorginho and Declan Rice. But I feel like we're giving a little bit too much credence to this whole but the duels, we're Arsenal. We went up to hella places with 3 number 10s in our midfield and balled out.
Way more than that. When we was having 10s out wide, Wenger couldn't help but force them in.
Yeah.
Arteta used to play under that.
I feel like we're putting this ain't old Burnley, Dyche's Burnley. This is Nottingham Forest. Like, it's fine. If Emile Smith-Rowe, it won't crumble.
But then again, you got Morgan Gibbs White. I need whoever is in midfield to be on it. But that's my issue with Arsenal, if I'm completely honest, man. It's like you said there, it's like we're kind of halfway committed. Like, we either try to do a bit of defending and attacking, or we're a bit too defensive or too attacking. So I don't know. I think with Havertz, it's a political signing, really. Like, sporting wise, probably shouldn't be playing all this football. But Arteta has to justify that 65 million. So I know we got a couple of days before Nottingham Forest. So hopefully the next time we do this, next week sometime, our heads are in the skies and the clouds and we're thinking about the Liverpool game. Let people know where they can find you. Just not that I can imagine they don't know. We just done a stream and whatnot. Make sure you check that out, people. But let's hear from the lady herself. Yeah, guys. You're putting this out on Friday, right? Just don't know at this point, man. It could be today, it could be Friday. If I could be bothered to put a thumbnail together today, I'm not. Okay. So never mind. You guys can just go into the YouTube search and put in Chino's Arsenal. I will pop up. You guys can subscribe, set notifications, all that kind of stuff. And there will be a Friday's Vibe out tomorrow with Femi on Patreon. So if you guys want to be a part of the Cannon Club, you guys can join. It's 7 days free, and then you can dip out if you want. But if you want to actually see that show, you guys can. And ad-free of the actual post-match podcasts are out on Monday on Patreon as well. Otherwise, you can listen to it on Spotify and stuff. So yeah. So there you have it, people, man. As I said, I can't imagine they're not subscribed, but make sure you subscribe. Make sure you type in Jess, because you might even find her on some other platforms. Big up Dan, man. It's actually gold, man. Seeing the different contrast in Arsenal fans, it's proper entertaining, man. Really, especially when you're all agreeing with the same thing but saying it in different ways, and everyone's just shouting. It's absolutely amazing, man. But yeah, man, just. Let me let you get out of here, man. As usual, it's a pleasure. Subscribe, hit the like button, and let us know your thoughts. Do you disagree? Do you agree? We've covered a lot of points in this hour and 14 minutes. So yeah, and we're doing this where there's been F all to talk about on the transfer front, people. So like, comment, sub, all that stuff. We're out.
There's always just that active red flag, defending. I think it's like